Hari Om, everyone.
Om.
Hari Om, Amma. I'm happy to see so many have
Hari
joined. I know.
Om.
Hari Om, Mano Amma. I know we have Satsang tonight again, so I wasn't sure who would join or who would wait for later. I know Swamiji's Satsang will be much better, so I don't blame you. But
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Yeah.
Swamiji is my guru. I have to praise my guru.
I know that is true, but yours is also very good.
Oh, thank you, Amma. Thank you. That's the grace of the
We
guru.
like yours.
Yeah, grace of your guru, grace of the God.
Beautiful. I'm happy so many of you are here. Okay, so let's start with prayer. ॐ यन्माया वशवर्ति विश्वमखिलम् ब्रह्मादिदेवासुराः यत्तत्त्वादमृषैव भाति सकलम् रज्जो यथा हिर्भ्रमः यत्पादप्लवमेकमेव हि भवान् बोधे स्थितिर्षावथा वन्देऽहं तमशेषकारणपरम् रामाख्यमीशं हरिम् किष्किन्धाकाण्ड मङ्गलाचरणम् कुन्देन्दीवरसुन्दरौ अतिबलौ विज्ञानधामौ उभौ शोभाढ्यौ वरधन्विनौ श्रुतिनुतौ गोविप्रवृन्दप्रियौ मायामानुषरूपिणौ रघुवरौ सद्धर्मवर्मौ हितौ सीतान्वेषणतत्परौ पतिगतौ भक्तिप्रदौ तौ हि नः ब्रह्माम्बोधिसमुद्भवं कलिमल प्रध्वंसनं चाव्ययम् श्रीमच्छम्भुमुखेन्दुसुन्दरवरे संशोभितं सर्वदा संसारामयभेषजं सुखकरं श्रीजानकी जीवनम् धन्यस्ते कृतिनः पिबन्ति सततम् श्रीरामनामामृतम् मुक्तिजन्ममहिजाने ज्ञानखानि अघहानिकर जह बस शंभु भवानी सो काशी से यकसन जरत सकल सुरभिंद विषमगरल जेहि पान किय तेहि न बजसे मन मंद ओ कृपाल शंकर सरीस यावर रामचंद्र की जय पवन सुत हनुमान की जय उमापति महादेव की जय बोलो भाई सब संतन की जय। श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। So, in our trek through Kishkinda we have gone from meetings of Bhakta and Bhagavan to alliances between devotees and the divine, and now to sevakas that go in search of Shanti. We saw that first encounter of Bhakta and Bhagavan, Bhagavan Sri Rama and Hanumanji. Then we saw the alliance of devotee and the divine between Sugriva and Bhagavan Sri Rama. And now, sevakas go in search of Shanti. Sita Ma represents Shanti. And we see all the bears and monkeys, Hanumanji, everyone going in search of that Shanti, which is Sita Ma. In the process of our journey through Kishkinda Kand, we will see the awakening of different devotees as they go through their spiritual path. Last week, we saw the awakening of Sugriva out of his state of delusion and indulgence up to a point where he was ready to take up the task at hand and send those bears and monkeys off in search of Sitama. In today's episode, we will see the awakening of Hanumanji. Also, very beautiful prasanga is going to unfold today. But there's a stark contrast in the manner of awakening in these two characters. See, Sugriva's awakening was that from a state of tamas to a state of rajas. Come out of your delusion, Sugriva. Stop indulging in all of these worldly pleasures and begin your search for Shanti. Come out of your tamas. Go to rajas now. Swamiji spoke last night about this also. Stepwise, we have to progress from tamas to rajas, then rajas to sattva. No leaps allowed. Now, Hanumanji, we already know is sattvic. What kind of awakening can Hanumanji have then? The best likeness I could find for this was Hanumanji's awakening, which we will see, will be from sattva to vishuddha sattva. That sattva, vishuddha sattva, is that which Ishvara possesses himself. It's that sattva which rajas and tamas stand subservient to. It's how Ishvara brings forth the creation, uses that rajas to create, uses the tamas to manifest the collective ignorance of all beings in the form of the particular birth they have to take, those jivas. And he utilizes his sattva under this control to bring forth these different parts of creations. In other words, that sattva, which rajas and tamas stand subservient to, is the sattva that can achieve the maximum potential for any being, any deity, divinity itself. Today we will see that awakening of Hanumanji from this form of sattva to the highest form of sattva, where he will meet his highest potential in his final journey towards Lanka. So, very nice story is going to unfold in this awakening of Hanumanji. But to get to there, let's start where we were last week. So, where had we left? That all of the troops had now been sent off. And this journey of these bears and monkeys, this entire army to find Sitama, represents the journey of a sadhaka on their journey to discovering Shanti, Ananda, that supreme bliss, quietude. In the journey of a sadhaka, we saw that initially great enthusiasm was there, as is there for all of us when we begin our journey. But that enthusiasm began to wane. And what had happened to the army is, having left behind all of their worldly pleasures, their comfortable home, their indulgences, and now seeking to go through this forest to find Sitama, Shanti, the absolute goal. What had happened? They had left behind their anitya sukham, means they had left behind all temporary forms of worldly happiness in home and comfort. They were now going in search of the highest form of happiness, Shanti, Sitama. But having left one and not achieved the other, their desire for happiness is left unfulfilled. And many of us as sadhakas also, we begin to develop a certain amount of viveka and vairagya. We leave behind certain worldly pleasures. But having not realized Brahmananda, we feel like our happiness is yet unfulfilled. I can't do that anymore. I haven't found that. Now, where am I here? And this is the precarious situation that those soldiers had found themselves in. That Trishna, that desire, those kamas were left unfulfilled. Hanumanji quickly became aware of the situation and he said, I have to save them from this. Because when desires are left unfulfilled, we begin to try to fulfill them by going along the wrong path. Many times we get distracted. So we saw last week Hanumanji, having realized this, he climbed up on top of a mountain and said, I have to search now for water, for something to quench the thirst of these soldiers. And just as water quenches thirst, he looked for the appropriate water to quench the thirst of desire, which was there in the hearts of these soldiers. He knew that they needed not only physical water and food to quench the thirst at the level of their body, but they needed rest at the level of their mind. And they also needed satsang at the level of their intellect. At all of these levels, their thirst needed to be quenched body, mind, and intellect. And so Hanumanji, standing on that mountain, raising his vision above the level of the common mode of thinking, sought to look for a solution beyond the mundane. And at that point on that mountaintop is where he spotted a cave into which multiple birds were entering. And he looked at the type of birds. He said, these are all birds that go in search of water. Wherever these birds are entering, water must be there. Sustenance must be there. Some luscious fruits for them to replenish themselves. And so, using his intellect, without actually seeing water by Upalakshana, he understood by his Anumana Pramana. He inferred this is where we need to go. And then he took the front to lead the army there. Now, there's a beautiful chaupai in this part of Kishkindakan, which I'll chant now. It talks about that cave that he saw and the birds that he saw entering. And three main types of birds he lists here. It's important because these birds represent different types of sadhakas who go in search of fulfilling their thirst in life and what it shows about each one. So I thought this was important for us in our journey as sadhakas also to see this. So we'll chant this chaupai. चढ़ी गिरी शिखर चहुदिसि देखा भूमि विभर एक कौतुक फेखा चक्रवाक बस चक्रवाक so this is the first type of bird चक्रवाक बक हंस उड़ाई बहुतक कग प्रबिसहि तेहि माही. So here he talks about three types of birds. Chakrabaka, one type, Baka, the heron, and or the crane as we call it, and Hamsa, that Hamsa Pakshi, the swan. The Chopais is climbing on top of that hill. Hanumanji looked around and he noticed a cavity in the ground, and he saw a strange phenomenon there. That Chakravakas, cranes, and swans were hovering at its mouth, and a number of other birds were making their way into that cave. Now, this Chakrabaka Paksha, this type of bird represents the Kami, the one who's always desiring after material gains. The Baka, the crane, represents the untrustworthy bird. The crane is always trying to appear to be something that it's not. It's the second type of sadhaka that's there. I'll explain more after. And then the Hamsa Pakshi. Hamsa Pakshi is very sattvic bird. That's swan. Like the swan that Saraswati Ma sits on. This bird represents a true seeker of knowledge, a true seeker of the highest. All three of these were seeking water. Means they were seeking satsang. They were seeking something that could quench the thirst for whether their worldly desires, their desire for location, a name and fame, or their desire for supreme truth, whichever one it was. They were all desiring that satsang by which Bhagwan could deliver to them these different material gains, fulfill these thirsts or these desires. We see the three different types now. The first one, that Chakrabaka, the Kami, means this is as though the Artha between that Chakrabaka and that Baka, the crane, they are the Artha and Artharthi type of seekers. Means they seek after I would like to get things in order to gain happiness in my life, or I would like these things removed so that I don't have this sorrow in my life. But they still go to Bhagwan as the solution for it. Bhagwan, you take away my sorrows, or Bhagwan, you give me this. That Chakrabaka Kami, always seeking, I want things, Artharthi. Or Artha also. Take away these things from me. I don't want this sorrow. That karma keeps coming up in him. That's his representation. The Baka is also like Arthan Artharthi also. I want to appear as something I'm not. He's the one that goes to Satsang in order to mark his attendance. I make sure everyone sees me. I make sure after I walk and talk to everyone. He may come in 10 minutes before it finishes and sits at the back. But he goes and meets everyone after so they know I was here. And so he can say after, I know that Swamiji, I listened to his satsang. Different types of sadhakas are there. But it's good because they're still seeking Bhagwan at the end of the day. Little by little, they will evolve up. And that Hamsa Paksha is the sattvic one, the true seeker, like the Jignasu. That fourth type of seeker genuinely wants knowledge and goes after that. So we saw these four in Bhagavad Gita. Sima Amma asked that nice question last night about these four to Swamiji also. Artha, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Jnani. Artha and Artharthi are like that Chakrabaka and the Baka. Jignasu like that Hamsa Pakshi. With Jnani is Hanumanji watching all of them. Jnani tu atmaiva me matam, Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita. That Jnani is like me myself. Like Jnani is no different. Just as Bhagavan can assess each different type of devotee. So to Hanumanji could look there and assess the different types of birds that were there. As Jnani, he knew. And he knew that cave, when we go there, regardless of the type of desire that lays unfulfilled in my troops, it will be fulfilled in that spot. Because every single one of these different types of birds are going there and getting their fulfillment. That's why so many are hovering at that spot. See the intelligence of Hanumanji and how he analyzes. The beautiful part of the analysis of the Mahima of Hanumanji at this point. So we proceed further, and Hanumanji now leads them to this cave. Now, before we enter into the cave, another nice point is made here that there were many different armies, four sets were sent off in the four different directions north, south, east, and west. Right? Bhagavan Sri Rama already knew that south was the direction to go for Sitama, and that's why he gave Hanumanji the ring and told him, go with the southward battalion because you will find Sitama there. So, if we're thinking and we're doing Mananam, we would say, why did Bhagwan send four armies in four different directions? He could have concentrated his efforts southward. A beautiful point we can realize from this is that everyone needs sadhana, and Bhagwan will provide the avenue for each different type of sadhana, depending on what each one is seeking. But for those sadhakas who are like Hanumanji, the ones who are truly seeking Shanti, that's the one that Bhagwan will give his ring to. That is the one that will do Bhagwan's work, and he will be the one who will eventually find Shanti, Sitama, by going in that direction. So it may seem like we're bumbling around in the world in all different directions, but in the end, were they not all called back for the war? And they were not all called back for that at that final point where Shanti would be ultimately given back to them permanently. So regardless of what direction we go in life, Bhagwan is guiding only. He alone sent them in all four directions, but he will bring us back also. Have faith in the process. But also it should inspire us to be more like Hanumanji. So we won't have to go diverted everywhere in life. We will get sent straight to the goal. So now Hanumanji is leading the troops toward that cave. As they enter the cave, they find a beautiful area. Cool, calm, large area of water they can drink and replenish. Beautiful fruit trees, luscious fruits that they can quench their hunger. Cool areas that they can rest under. So at this point, they get food and water at the level of their body. Mind gets to rest for some time. And intellect, as they enter the cave, there's one tapasvini sitting there in meditation. Tapasvini Swayam Prabha. And as they see her, they pay obeisance. And she greets them and she says, go. Fulfill your thirst first. Get those things out of the way, then come and sit. And she gives satsang to them. She tells them about her life and her spiritual journey, about her desire to meet Bhagwan Sri Rama. Important points are here in this prasanga about our journey as sadhakas. That's what this journey of the troops represent. That thirst may need to be fulfilled at the level of the body and the mind, but the intellect is where that final thirst is actually fulfilled. Sometimes in life, don't neglect the body and the mind either. We may want so much satsang, but if your body needs food and your mind needs rest, it will be too turbulent to even be able to take in satsang. So ensure that you are replenished at the level of body and mind, then go to intellect. The other way we can look at this also. If mind is in Trishna, it's continually seeking after things. And I'm not hungry or thirsty. I've had enough rest. I've had enough food. I'm fine. But that mind is still turbulent. Don't go after more worldly pursuits. Don't go say, well, now I need to go to the mall. Now I want to go see a movie. I feel unfulfilled. When that Trishna boils up inside of you, don't go continually fulfilling at the level of body and mind. Maybe it's because it's intellect level that hasn't been fulfilled yet. Find satsang. Go online, find a video of Gurudev, attend satsang live, best way if possible. But every time we feel unfulfilled, it's not only at the level of the body and mind. Most times, to feel that complete fulfillment, it's that intellectual level that's lacking. Don't continue in the menial ways. Take our mind to the next level. So, when all of these levels were fulfilled, now the troops found themselves satiated body, mind, and intellect. And now they were ready to resume their journey. Only when we've been fulfilled at these three levels, then we can continue in our pursuit of Shanti. Next step comes now. They are ready to go forth, but in what direction to proceed? They have been lost in the forest for so long, haven't found any sign of Sita Ma. So Tapasvini Swayam Prabha, now she directs them. She says, I know where you need to go to. And you all have been so diligent in your path that I will help you there now. And she tells them all, now you close your eyes, meditate inward now. And with the power of my austerity, I will transport you all bodily out of this cave to the next site that you need to be at to continue your journey. See the power of tapas and what it can do. These little bits of inspiration are there for us also. So, following that instruction, they all sat their eyes closed, and that Tapaswini transported them bodily from that cave to that seashore, which we now refer to as Rameshwaram, that southernmost point of India, just before that jump across the ocean to Lanka. The power of her authority, she transported them there and placed them. Now, this site itself, this is the site which will prompt that renowned, awe-inspiring revelation in the character of of our Hanumanji. This is where that awakening will happen that we were talking about in the beginning. In our entire exploration of Kinnada Kand thus far and Sri Ramachartamanas, is the first time that we will be privy to the real Veera Hanumana, that Veera Maruti, Ati Dhira Maruti, his strength and his resplendence we'll see in this final awakening here, where that unassuming Sevaka is now awakened by Jambuvanji, and we see the true power of what is latent within all of us. So let us see this awakening of Hanumanji. Now, when they were instructed to close their eyes, after appearing on that seashore, all of the monkeys now opened their eyes, and before them, before lost in a forest, now all they see is water. From one trouble to the next. They said, at least the forest we could walk across. How are we going to get through this water now? Now we're in even more problems. And they all began to feel so despondent. How in the world are we going to conquer this insurmountable task? Look at the size of this ocean. That ocean represented Dehatma Bhava, the identification with this body that we all have as sadhakas. And that's why that ocean was so vast. Because as sadhakas, we feel, how in the world am I ever going to conquer this attachment to this body? This notion that I am this body is one of my strongest identifications. And just like these bears and monkeys, where in Sri Ramachartamanas it said some of them had tears in their eyes, thinking, how am I going to conquer this thing? And many of us as sadhakas will come to that point also, tears in our eyes. How am I going to overcome my attachment to this body, much less reach the level of attachment to the mind, then to transcend beyond that? If we can't overcome Dehatma Bhava, how are we going to get to Jiva Bhava? And then all the way up to Atma Sthiti. This was the precarious state that those monkeys were in now. See Hanumanji and the difference. A disciplined Hanumanji, sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, having been instructed to close his eyes, maintained that instruction until he was told otherwise. Every other one said, okay, it's time to open my eyes now. And they started looking around. Hanumanji did not open his eyes. He was instructed with this and he remained with the instructions. When we are instructed by the gurus in a certain practice, we practice it once, we practice it twice, then we say, this isn't working, next. We go shopping for gurus, we go shopping for sadhana. I tried some japam, it didn't work. I tried meditation, that doesn't work. Shravan, how much Shravanam will I do? Listening. I am not reaching anywhere. When the guru gives an instruction, it is in our best interest to keep at that sadhana until the guru says it's time to switch. Next, now. That titiksha, that ability to stick to our sadhana, Hanumanji had because of his sadhana chatushtaya. And so what happened is that while all of the other monkeys did not stick to the sadhana, and they opened their eyes and they saw this insurmountable ocean and they began to feel despondent, Hanumanji sat there quietly, eyes closed. He didn't see any challenge before him because he was focused inside, not outside. And I mean, he's sitting there with his eyes closed. Of course, he may have been hearing what all of them are saying around also. Even in that, he's preparing himself. I know what's going to come when I open my eyes. Don't be overwhelmed by it. In the process of sadhana, we prepare ourselves for the challenges that will come. And so when Hanumanji did eventually open his eyes, he was already prepared and he was able to maintain his equanimity to overcome the next obstacle. Means sitting there with his eyes closed, what did he show? That to overcome extrovert dehatma bhava, identification with this body, we need to go inward. Because when our vision remains fixed within, then what is outside cannot distract us. Hanumanji now, ever obedient with his eyes closed, is showing us that when we are instructed by the masters, know that it is in our best interest to obey. But that type of obedience requires discipline. This was the difference between Hanumanji and the others. So develop that discipline within us because deficient of this qualification, we are often forced to face innumerable unnecessary hurdles and challenges which we otherwise could have avoided had we been more meticulous in our shravanam and its execution. So important message we learn here from Hanumanji. While others are in dismay, if we can remain focused inward and follow the advice of the gurus, we can remain equanimous and then we will be the one to overcome that challenge. So Hanumanji is sitting there now, quietly, and Jambavanji is looking at him. Jambavanji now is very old and wise, leader of the bears, and he sits there and he looks at Hanumanji and he says, I know what needs to happen now. See, Jambavanji was privy to the secrets of even Hanumanji's youth, which lay obscure to even Hanumanji at this point. See, there's a story. I think the story I had shared in Upanishad Ganga. So most of you may know it already. Anyway, you would know it from Ramayana before. But in Hanumanji's youth, he is a very wicked little boy, as all little boys are extremely wicked. And imagine a wicked little 4 or 5-year-old with the powers of Hanumanji, the son of the wind god, blessed by Bhagwan Shivaji and all these devatas. So many powers and abilities available to him. But yet, a naughty little boy, how would he use those powers? Of course, to wreak havoc on everyone else around. And apparently, there was one sage who used to do meditation in that area, close to where Hanumanji had lived then. And Hanumanji would always play tricks on that sage over and over, to the point that that sage became so frustrated, he actually placed a curse on Hanumanji. Not a bad curse, but to obstruct him, to stop him from his juvenile misuse of his great powers. And he told Hanumanji, he said, I pronounce that you will suffer Vismriti. You will suffer forgetfulness now, and you will not be able to remember the powers which you possess. And not until that situation arises in life in which those same powers can be employed constructively in the service of the Lord, only then will you remember your powers. And at that point, one great soul, one wise one will come to reawaken those powers in you, to remind you of what your true potential is. But only at that point when you are ready to use it wisely in the service of Bhagwan's work. Nice message for us all here. That when we use our abilities for the wrong thing, or when we waste them, they will be taken away. And even Hanumanji was not excused from this. Now, we may say we don't have powers and ability like Hanumanji, but what we have within this assembly right here are great gifts, great abilities. The power of your sight, the power of hearing, all of your senses, the power of this mind. These are gifts given by Bhagwan. Other forms of beings, low forms of being, don't have an intellect. These are gifts. And if we continue to misuse them, they will be taken away. This is how we get lower birth in future janmas. Simple thing like our sense of sight. How many of us waste time watching television, hours and hours of television? I'm not saying don't watch television. At some point, the mind itself, this being itself came out of Rajapradana Guna, right? So that Prakriti is there, that Rajaguna, some turbulence will be there. I'll want to engage some Rajas. Maybe I'll want to watch television. It's not wrong. Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva has to have its place in our life. But how do we utilize it? Misuse of it means we are Sukha Swarupa. You want to watch television? Watch something happy. At least maybe it can link you to your higher nature. But don't watch violence and things that will incite karma and desire, lower thoughts in you. Watch something happy, no problem. What else? We are Jnana Swarupa. Watch something knowledgeable. Watch a documentary. It doesn't mean don't engage desires when they come, engage them in the right way. Otherwise, if misused, it will be taken away. How many children now in our generation only video games from very small? By the time they're teenagers, they need glasses. Why? You ask the the ophthalmologist. Wear and tear on the eyes. Too much time staring at the screen, their eyes have become weak. At 13 years old, they need glasses, spectacles. Misuse, abuse of this indriya. These senses have a presiding deity residing in them. You abuse those deities, they will revoke their power. Other than having some biological or physiologic problem with your eyes for which you need glasses, that's understandable. But from wear and tear alone, you shouldn't need spectacles until maybe 40 years into life. Then it's understandable. But in 20s, 30s, teenage years, the idea that spectacles are needed just because of wear and tear on the eyes it means we are misusing the abilities that are given to us. In these simple ways, we can see how these lessons from scripture are applicable to our everyday life. And just like Hanumanji, even such a divine being could have had powers taken away from him for misuse, then we will not be excluded from these principles of the way the universe functions also. So be careful how we use our eyes, what we use our ears for. Instead of listening to gossip, listen to praise of the Lord, or help others with our speech. So, in this way, examine our lives. Sattvika is our ahara, what we take in and what we give out through all of our senses. Now, at this point, Jambavanchi knew this curse, so to speak, this shrapa that had been placed on Hanumanji that he would forget until a wise one came to remind him. And so Jambavanji knew this is the time. Now I have to remind Hanumanji of his power because this is where he needs to do the Lord's work. I need to awaken him at this point. None of these other bears and monkeys looking out at this ocean will be able to achieve this task. Hanumanji, time. You have to awaken now. But see how Jambavanji tests him before he takes him to the final awakening. What he says to Hanumanji at this point, he says, why are you keeping so silent? You are the abode of might and wisdom. Why don't you wake up and show us your power? So, what does he do? First, he invokes Hanumanji's sense of individuality, a sense of strength in himself. See what he says in this chaupai. Sahai Richapati Sunu Hanumana का चुप साधि रहे बलवाना पवन तनय बल पवन समाना बुद्धि विवेक विज्ञान निधाना. O Hanumanji, you are buddhi, viveka, vijnana, nidhana, that abode of wisdom, knowledge, supreme detachment. You are the one who can achieve this task. So, invoking Hanumanji's Vyashti Ahankara, his sense of strength in his ego, Jambavanji tried to awaken him first. Means he's testing him. Are you going to think on the strength of my ego, I'm going to achieve this? Because then you will fail. And we know that you're not the one to go forth on this journey. Or what are you going to do? As Jambavanji instigated him in this manner to awaken his ego, Hanumanji did not respond. He sat there quietly, with his eyes closed, continuing to meditate, as though he did not even hear it. When we receive praises like this in life, our ego swells. Hanumanji's lesson to us, pretend you didn't even hear it. I remember our Acharyaji telling us every time someone gives you a compliment, "Oh, you speak so nicely, you sing so nicely, that yellow color suits you nicely." Every single thing that they are complimenting is exactly what you are not. You throw those compliments out. You graciously accept and pass it on to Bhagwan. This body is alone from the earth. This mind is made up of subtle Panchamahabhutas, also alone from the universe. The intellect also. Nothing here is yours actually. Why are you taking it as your own praise? Just so Hanumanji, no matter what praises came his way, not me, not me. Dambavanji realized, good. He's negated that sense of individuality, and therefore this is proof that his Dehatma Bhava is conquered. Therefore, he will be the one to cross that ocean of Dehatma Bhava and complete this journey. But now we have to get him out of this meditation so that he can do it. So, what does he do? He goes forward and he awakens his higher identity. What does he say? Kavan sukaja katin jag mahi, जो नहीं होई तात तुम पाही राम काज लगी तव अवतारा सुनत ही भयो पर्वताकारा. He says, Hanumanji, Rama kaj lagi tava avatara. Your avatara, the purpose for your birth, is about to be fulfilled. Rama kaj lagi. You have to achieve the task. The work of Bhagavan Sri Rama now awaits you. Come and claim the purpose for which you have been born. And hearing this, just these words, Rama Kaja awaits you. Hanumanji, on hearing the name of his Bhagwan, he immediately opened his eyes, and it said he grew to the size of Parvata Akara, the size of a huge mountain. His entire body grew to that size. It said the hairs on his body were almost golden, and so in that size he looked like an enormous, splendorous golden mountain. standing there overshadowing that ocean. When the name of Bhagwan hit his heart, nothing could stop him. The ability for Vyashti to experience that chitta vishalata, that expansiveness of character, of mind, to that level of samashti, totality, is only when he realizes that his true identity was ever that totality itself. This is the awakening that Jambavanji instigated out of Hanumanji at this point. And he stood there now like a splendorous golden mountain roaring, ready to go forth on his journey. How did this happen? That trigger came from the wise one. And many times in life, one precious reminder is all we need from the Holy One. And from that, the entire repository of divine potential that lay dormant within us can immediately reawaken. There's that point when we know it's time for me to go forward on my spiritual journey. It's time for me to leave certain things behind. When you transition from Vanaprastha into sannyasa, we have to know when it's time to make that drop. It's time now. And often it's that trigger from the wise ones in our lives that they will come and whisper that word. And it will awaken that sense in us. It's time. I have to do this. And in torrents like Gangama rushing down, it will flood the parched plains of our life. And we will take up that goal that we were born to achieve. This is what Hanumanji felt in that moment, that I have found the purpose of my life and I will go forth now. This Vyashti, this sense of individuality, has to surrender itself to Samashti for this transition to happen. Even in Brahmananda Vali of Taittiriya Upanishad, it's talked about there. It reveals that the foundation of the individual intellectual sheath actually rests in the total intellect itself. And the ones who are able to tune to this identity, as Hanumanji was able to, they are able to access so many of those resources of that Supreme Purusha. We see that ability in our Santa Mahatmas. We see that ability in Hanumanji. Why don't we think that we can accomplish this also? Look at what our Puja Gurudev and our Puja Guruji has accomplished. If they have done it, Siddhasya Lakshanani, Sadhakasya Sadhanani. It becomes our sadhana to follow in their steps and do exactly what they have achieved. This was how Hanumanji was able to achieve these sort of titanic tasks. And this is how Hanumanji, in that one gargantuan leap, could conquer the entire distance of that ocean, decimate Ravana's army, decimate Lanka itself, and return victorious, having found Sitama. But even though at this point, having been reawakened, Hanumanji realized what his total potential was, one more beautiful thing he does. He turns to Jambavanji in all of his power and glory, and he prostrates. He supplicates to Jambavanji, and he asks for his advice and his blessing before he goes forth on this path. And there Jambavanji gives him some very important advice. Now, this prasanga also is very beautiful. We'll have to go into it next week because our time is up. But what Jambavanji reveals to him here, and Hanumanji's spirit of taking Jambavanji's advice before he goes forward on his journey, some very key points are given for us on how we go forward in life on our spiritual journey. So this we'll delve into next week. And then, together with Hanumanji, we will all make that leap from Kishkinda Kand into Sundarkand also. So join us next week as our journey continues. Veera Maruti, Gambhira Maruti, Veera Maruti, Gambhira Maruti, Veera Maruti, Veera Maruti, Geeta Maruti, Sangeeta Maruti, Duta Maruti, भक्त मारुति परम भक्त मारुति भक्त मारुति परम भक्त मारुति वीर मारुति गंभीर मारुति गंभीर मारुति गंभीर मारुति ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ Hari Om everyone, and join us tonight for our final night of Narada Bhakti Sutra Yajna. Some nice questions have come also. So please come with your thinking caps on. Swamiji will take us here, there through to conclude this portion of Narada Bhakti Sutra, and very nice answers he will have prepared for our questions. So we'll see
Jyoti, can I ask
everyone.
a question?
Sure, Amma.
Jyoti ji, we say Brahma Sutras, but we only say Narada Bhakti Sutra, even though it's composed of many sutras. Can you explain that to me?
I noticed that also, Amma. I was postulating for myself. I don't see it explained in the text anywhere, but I was also wondering. So, plural of sutra is actually sutrani. Like, what did we study? Jivana Sutrani, we studied, right? So that means
Right.
many sutras. So,
Okay.
correctly, grammatically, it should be sutrani if we're talking about plural. But
Okay.
in the name of a text, also, it can be given as a singular. Narada Bhakti Sutra, Brahma Sutra is also given in just in the name of text. We notice sometimes even in English titles it's given as the shorter form. um I can't give an exact reason why they use singular instead of plural, but
Okay.
you're right though, it is multiple sutras, so sutrani would actually be the plural of it. Maybe we should ask Swamiji that too.
I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't know
I
if it was
think
too simple of a question to ask, so I didn't bring it up.
I think it's a good question because I don't know the answer either. Geeta Amma, do you know the answer?
I have
So,
no idea. But I knew about Sutra and Sutrani.
huh.
The way we put it in the English, Narada Bhakti Sutras. That
Huh.
you add that yes to that one. But um, why singular sutra word is used? I have no idea.
So me also. So Sima, it's a nice question. Both Geeta and myself don't know. So I think you should ask Swamiji. It's nice.
Okay, I'll ask. Okay. I'll
Okay.
ask somebody who hasn't asked a question to ask. So
Okay.
I'll pass it on to somebody if
Good,
somebody
good.
We have a total of 5 questions to be answered today. So,
Can that
Oh,
be
thank you,
added?
Krishnamurti Uncle.
Krishnamurti, can that be added?
so if you have time, we'll add this as a 6th question. I don't know if other people ask during the session today, then we will decide.
Okay, maybe Umaji can ask that question for me.
Krishnamurti ji, I sent a question this morning. I hope you added that.
Anuradhama.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
saw.
I've added all the questions that came in emails.
Yeah, I sent a question this morning.
Okay. I should have added. I didn't remember the names, but I today collected 4 or 5 questions.
We'll check and make sure, Amma. Otherwise, you can ask Swamiji personally during the meet and greet, okay? There'll be time this evening for you to speak to Swamiji directly. Don't worry. Okay, Hari Om, everyone. We'll see you later.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Jyoti ji.
Welcome, Amma.
Hari Om, everybody.
Hari
Thank you,
Om.
Jyoti ji. Hari Om.
Hari Om Shivagami, Amma. How are you?